Hello everyone, in this video we're going to go over slope from a table. And remember, our definition of slope is a change in y over the change in x. So here's the first example problem. I want to find the slope of this table here. So the first thing I need to do is I need to find the change in y. So I'm going to use the color red to represent the change in y. I know that looking at my table, my y values are going to be in the bottom row. So I'm comparing the two numbers 5 and 8. So starting at 5 and moving up to 8, what's the change going to be? How do I get from 5 to 8? Well, that's going to be a change of plus 3. So that my change is going to be 3. Now let's look for my change in x. I'm going to use blue to represent my change in x. And I know that my x values are located at the top row. So I'm comparing the 4 and the 6. So how do I get from 4 all the way to 6? Well, that's a change of plus 2. So I know that my change in x is going to be 2. So the slope for this table is going to be 3 over 2. Okay. Here's our second example problem. I want to find the slope of this table here. So let's start off by finding my change in y. Okay. And so I know that my y values are in the bottom row. So I'm starting at 9 and going down to 4. So if I'm starting at 9 and going down to 4, are my values getting bigger or smaller? So I know that my values are getting smaller. So I know the difference between 9 and 4 is minus 5. Because 9 minus 5 is going to get me to 4. So my change in y is going to be minus 5. Now let's take a look at our change in x. I know that my x values are located up here on the top row of my tables. And so if I want to find a change in x, I need to compare the 2 and the 5. So if I'm starting at 2 and moving up to 5, what's that change going to be? That's going to be a change of plus 3. So I know that my change in x is going to be 3. So I know that my slope of this table is going to be negative 5 over 3. Okay. Here's our third example. I want to find the slope of this table here. And you might have noticed that this table looks a little different from the other two examples. Here we have more than just 2 columns. We have 3. So the question is, where am I going to draw my arrows? Am I going to draw my arrows like this, or like this, or like this? How am I going to figure out the slope of this? So the cool thing about finding slope from a table is, it doesn't really matter where we draw our arrows, as long as our arrows are consistent. And so in order to show that, I'm going to find the slope of this table a couple of different times. So the first way I'm going to solve this is, I'm going to use these 2 arrows here. Okay, so let's find the slope using those 2 points. First, I need to find my change in y. So looking at my y values, going from 5 up to 10, I know that's going to be a change of plus 5. So my change in y is 5. And taking a look at my change from 0 to 4, my change in x, that's going to be a change of plus 4. So the slope of this is going to be 5 over 4. Now, what if I pick 2 different arrows? Will I still get the same slope? Let's figure that out. So instead of drawing these orange arrows, what if I drew these purple arrows? If I use these 2 arrows instead, will I get the same slope? Let's figure that out. Okay, let's find my change in y. Here, I'm starting at 5 and going up to 15. That's going to be a change of plus 10. So that's going to be a change of 10. And let's find my change in x. I'm going from 0 all the way up to 8, so that's going to be a change of plus 8. Now, ask yourselves, are these 2 slopes going to be the same thing? Well, we know that 10 over 8 can be reduced. Both of these are divisible by 2. And so 10 divided by 2 is going to be 5, and 8 divided by 2 is 4. So it turns out, as long as we keep our arrows consistent, it doesn't really matter which boxes we use, we're still going to get the same answer. These are both going to be 5 over 4. Okay, and here's our last example. I want to find the slope of this table. I want to find the slope. So, again, it doesn't really matter where we draw our arrows. So just to keep things simple, I'm just going to use these first 2 boxes here. So I'm starting down at negative 1, and I'm going to move further down to negative 5. So think about that. I'm starting at negative 1 and going further negative to negative 5. So am I going to be adding or subtracting? Well, in order to get more negative, I need to subtract 4. So I know that a change in y is going to be negative 4. Now let's find our change in x. Let's compare the x values up here. I'm starting at negative 11, which is all the way down here, and I'm moving up to negative 8. So are my values getting bigger or smaller? Again, starting down here at negative 11 and moving up to negative 8, I know that my values are getting bigger. I'm actually adding 3. So I know my change in x is going to be 3. So the slope of this table is going to be negative 4 over 3. So just remember, when we're trying to find slope from a table, we're just going to be comparing two y values to find the change in y, and then we're going to be comparing two x values to find the change in x. And we need to make sure that our arrows are being in the same direction, that they're being consistent.